Hi there, that's right, great new Laura, soon to be famous one day, Nick Dutch back on the camera again one more time. Hi there, how the heck's it going? Big welcome to all the brand new subscribers who have appeared on this channel. It's wonderful to see you there. I don't know which particular of my videos has attracted you to this channel, but if there's anything that you personally would like to see on it, please leave it in the comment section, and I'll be quite happy to have a look and then think about, the subjects you wish me to discuss and all the rest of that. So, hi there, how the heck's it going? Now today I want to talk to you about stories. Now I'm not here to tell you a story, or am I? Now if I was to tell you about stories, me just being a person sitting here and talking to a camera, what essentially would I be doing? I'll be telling you a story essentially about stories. And essentially that's basically, I suppose, what I'm going to do. Because if you are just seeing people talking on YouTube, for instance, what you're doing is you're taking on board a story that someone is telling you. Storytelling is the key thing that makes us human beings. If you think about it, when you go for a job interview, you might put on a really good suit and then go on to that job interview. And what are you doing when you do that? You're putting on your theatrical costume, which essentially fits a certain role, communicates a certain message, so that you can then tell a story to your interviewer as to who you are, what you're about, and precisely why you're good for that particular job. And then, of course, there's all the things you're actually going to say in the interview itself. And that's essentially part of the theatrical act which you're putting on. It's essentially storytelling in action to try and bring about a specific result. If there was none of that at all, you certainly wouldn't have the opportunity of being able to get that particular job. So essentially storytelling is important, primarily for the purposes of economic survival as well as social survival. But just think about storytelling on a number of different levels, okay? What about politics? What about your presence within your nation? When I was a kid in school, I was taught about the history of Great Britain. We were taught that this was a land that was inhabited by people a long, long, long time ago, people who came from all around Europe, and they eventually became the British race. So we were actually indoctrinated from quite an early age to actually believe that we as British people were somehow genetically different from everybody else on the face of the planet, despite the fact that as a nation we are genetically related to the various people who settled here, people from Iceland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, France, Germany, Spain, basically you name it. They all came here at some point. The people who live here in this country of Great Britain may well be the descendants of Stone Age cannibals, or maybe the descendants of Roman slave girls who got raped during one particular wild night. Essentially, we don't know, but the fact of the matter is we all originated from somewhere, and if you look at the vast differences in appearance, in body size and type and all the rest of that, you can possibly suggest that maybe there are slightly different ethnic traits which have actually helped to build these people up to, and to be of various different types. My point is that there was a story. And the story is that we are one particular unit, and we are somehow different biologically to everybody else. Now, this is a fiction, but this fiction is essential for certain qualities of British people who would rather see themselves as being different and or potentially above anybody else. This particular story can be good for national identity, and it can also have its darker political connotations. But that's only one particular aspect of storytelling. Now, let's just say that hypothetically, or whatever, you were someone who lived a couple of thousand years ago, and you personally actually ran an ancient city. I mean, you actually ran an ancient city. You were like the grand president or emperor or whatever it was of that entire city. Maybe you would want to make sure that everybody thought in a similar manner or had the same kind of cultural reference point. And so maybe you would take some variety of story and then try and bring everyone to think about this particular story, possibly for the purposes of creating cohesion, possibly for the purposes of adjusting people's behavior. But nonetheless, you would bring this story in. What would you choose? Well, I think you already know what I'm grasping at here. You might choose a religious story. And why would you do that? Well, because there's some ideas there which can be useful, which can help to bring about possibly better social behavior. There's some ideas there that could be used during times of war to get people's passions raised and their blood boiling to the right level. And there's some aspects of religion which could actually be used to help to console people emotionally, so that it can help them to deal with some of the more difficult experiences they might go through in their life. But we're in a slightly different world now, aren't we? We're in a world of globalization. There's people in maybe South Africa, the United States of America, Britain, Europe, Australia, and all the rest of that who are going to watch this video. And in fact, after a few weeks, I might even have a look at the inside statistics and see how many people of all the various different countries have watched this particular video. So essentially, I've actually got a greater reach than in the ancient times, when possibly I would only have rulership or control or ideological impact over, let's say, a small primitive city within a stone wall. What is the nature of a nation in the 21st century, when we've all got access to the internet, the blogosphere, and all the rest of that? Is it, for instance, ideological? Do people gravitate to people who broadcast about certain things? Do people learn to think in a certain way, or allow their minds to become adjusted by people who broadcast in a certain way, or about certain subjects? I believe we see this on YouTube all the time. We might see one particular person develop fame and or notoriety for a particular subject that they are very keen about or very keen upon. We might see someone broadcasting a challenge to that, and there may be some people moving away from one particular broadcaster towards another one as they change their allegiance and change their points of view or perspective. And as such, are we actually seeing the creation of a virtual nations? Not bound by geography or not bound by a stone wall, but bound by views and opinions. And that is essentially what is possibly happening here. And all of that because of storytelling. Just people sitting down in front of a camera and talking. Some of these stories can be harmful. Some of these stories can divide societies. Some of these stories can encourage people to violence or revolution. Just like in ancient times. They can hold people together, they can drive people apart, they can create an enemy, they can be used in time of war, and it's still happening now the way that it did thousands of years ago. I personally consider this rather fascinating, because this dynamic is so intense these days. There's access to so many more broadcasts and opinions of people from various different virtual tribes or virtual nations. But what about the other aspects? The other aspect being the therapeutic aspect, the aspect which helps people to deal with life itself. Sure, there are people who broadcast religiously here on YouTube, for instance, or in the blogosphere in general. But are these religious broadcasts there to help people, or are they there to divide people, or are they there to affect people negatively in one manner or another? And what about the therapeutic aspect? Is that really there in the religious broadcasts? Just as I provided you with a hypothetical historical situation, let's provide you with a hypothetical future situation. Let's just say that in the future, all traditional religion has gone to dust. It's been washed away through the advance of atheism. There's no more stories of Jesus Christ, Odin, Mohammed, Thor, Yahweh, Buddha. It's all gone. And all we have is the teachings of scientists. You know what they'd do? They'd broadcast on the internet. And some of their broadcasts could be good for you, could be bad for you, could be useful in times of war, could be detrimental, could be there to drive you insane, could be there to hold people together through fear. And you might ask yourself, what's changed? Or instead of that particular possible future, why not think about another one? A future in which religious stories are still there, but there's a certain encouragement to use them therapeutically, as objects of contemplation, like a very good work of fiction which is designed to deal with a specific issue or a specific problem that someone might have. And people could be taught, let's say, in the schoolroom as to how to do this in a way which is down-to-earth, rational and sane. rather than one which is over the top and based upon literalism. People could then learn the right context of when to use the words of, let's say, Jesus Christ, or when to use the words of Stephen Hawking, which of course some people don't do. Some people can get rather myopic about these things and try and challenge the words of Stephen Hawking with the words of Jesus Christ, which is essentially thoroughly inappropriate behavior. However, some people still do it. People could, in short, people could actually learn to apply intellectual or academic reasoning to the use of religious stories and how they could be rationally applied on the human level. If we had moved away from all forms of storytelling which deals with the individual, which deals with a sense of intellectual balance, emotional balance, the right ideas to help a person get through a stressful situation, we would be in a very difficult situation indeed, I feel. I don't just want to give you an appeal to consequence here, but without the right variety of storytelling, humans would have to become dependent upon therapy in order for them to deal with life, rather than doing what they're doing at the moment, which is to dip into religion, to dip into fiction, and to find different forms of intellectual sources. I mean, think about it. The Jedi religion, of all things, people who have used one of the 20th century forms of fiction, namely the Star Wars series, and taken attitudes from that and turned that into a religion. Oh yeah, some people I'm sure see it as a parody religion and use that just for fun or a reflection, but I'm sure there are other people who do actually take it very seriously. Unlike, of course, maybe the cult of the flying spaghetti monster. I don't feel that there are that many literalist believers in the FSM. I could be wrong, but I just don't think that there are. Or maybe there are more Jedis and less Pastafarians. So, is it a good idea to do without religious stories? I don't think so. Is it a good idea to just make humans rely upon therapy, rather than to educate them as to how to intellectually and creatively introspect themselves, and to apply fiction in a way which could actually be beneficial to them? I mean, an individual could not believe in the literal being of Jesus Christ, not believe in the historical Jesus Christ, but could still read some of the stories of Jesus Christ, or indeed internally absorb some of the phrases, such as, let the thoughts of today look after today, and let the thoughts of tomorrow look after tomorrow, and learn how to apply that rationally so they can just calm down and deal with life better. That would actually make some sense to a certain degree, but it would still be using a religious idea. So, should we actually get rid of all religion and replace it purely with positivistic science? My argument here is an emphatic no. These so-called sand religions that some people talk about could, if explained well from the classroom onwards, become the foundation for a saner, more balanced, more reasonable species of human or culture of human in the future. Unfortunately, these days we still have the rather primitive educational system which encourages religious indoctrination rather than intellectual analysis, so that one can use the ideas from religion intelligently. That's what we have to grow out of, so that we can then have a better society. Getting rid of all fiction and getting rid of all religion is a bad thing. It just needs changing slightly. That's all. And people just need more relevant education to help them to use their sand religions or whatever you want to call them, in a manner which could be good for them and good for society.